Hey guys, this is Teddy from That Girl Teddy, and I'll be reading to you one of the stories in a book. And the title of the book is Chicken Soup for the Pet Lover Soul. I'm gonna be, I'll start reading stories and posting them on my YouTube channel because there was a time that I really wanted to be a great storyteller. Maybe I'm not that creative to make my own story, but I want to practice on reading and, reading. I want to practice my English, my intonation, just to show the emotion. And of course, I want to appreciate books for what they are. I want to show that emotionally on how I read as well. So you see my cats. I don't really have a good background, but anyways, I just want you to look at something. Yeah, just a cat lady in a small room, in a small cozy room with her cats. And that orange cat you see is Peach. He's just lying in a on a pile of clothes. And that one is Bowie, by the way. This one. Okay, so page 3 of Chicken Soup for the Pet Lover Soul. These are stories about pets as teachers, healers, heroes, and friends. Title: Delayed Delivery, page 3. Stella had been prepared for her husband's death. Since the doctor's pronouncement of terminal cancer, they had both faced the inevitable, striving to make the most of their remaining time together. Dave's financial affairs had always been in order. There were no new burdens in her widowed state. It was just the awful aloneness, a lack of purpose to her days. They have been a childless couple by choice. Their lives have been so full and rich. They had been content with busy careers and with each other. Oh, that sounds familiar. They had many friends. Had. That's sad. Okay. That was the operative word these days. It was bad enough losing the one person you loved with all your heart. But over the past few years, she and Dave repeatedly coped with the deaths of their friends and relations. They were all of an age when human bodies began giving up, dying. Face it, they were old. That's rude and awful. And now, approaching the first Christmas without Dave, Stella was all too aware she was on her own. With shaky fingers, she lowered the volume of her radio so that the Christmas music faded to a muted background. To her surprise, she saw that the mail had arrived. With the inevitable wince of pain from her arthritis, she bent to retrieve the white envelopes from the floor. She opened them while sitting on the piano bench. They were mostly Christmas cards, and her sad eyes smiled at the familiarity of the traditional scenes and at the loving messages inside. She arranged them among the others on the piano top. In her entire house, they were the only seasonal decoration. The holiday was less than a week away, but she just did not have the heart to put up a silly tree or even set up the table that Dave had built with his own hands. Suddenly, engulfed by the loneliness of it all, Stella buried her face in her hands and let the tears come. How would she possibly get through Christmas and the winter beyond it? The ring of the doorbell was so unexpected that Stella had to stifle a small scream of surprise. Now, who could possibly be calling on her? She opened the wooden door and stared through the window of the storm door with consternation. On her front porch stood a strange young man, whose head was barely visible above the large carton in his arms. She peered beyond him to the driveway, but there was nothing about the small car to give a clue as to his identity. Summoning courage, the elderly lady opened the door slightly and he stepped sideways to speak into the space. "Mrs. Thornhope?" She nodded. He continued, "I have a package for you." Curiosity drove caution from her mind. She pushed the door open and he entered. Smiling, he placed his burden carefully on the floor and stood to retrieve an envelope that protruded from his pocket. As he handed it to her, a sound came from the box. Stella jumped. The man laughed in apology and bent to straighten up the cardboard flaps, holding them open in an invitation for her to peek inside. It was a dog! To be more exact, a golden Labrador Retriever puppy. As the young gentleman lifted its squirming body up into his arms, he explained, "This is for you, ma'am." The young pup wiggled in happiness at being released from captivity and thrust ecstatic, wet kisses in the direction of the young man's face. "We were supposed to deliver him on Christmas Eve," he continued, with some difficulty as he strove to rescue his chin from the wet little tongue. "But the staff at the kennel start their holidays tomorrow. Hope you don't mind an early present." Shock had stolen Stella's ability to think clearly. Unable to conform coherent sentences, she stammered, "But, but, but I don't, I mean who?" The young fellow set the animal down on the doormat. Between them, and they reached out a finger to tap the envelope she was still holding. "There's a letter in there that explains everything. Pretty much the dog was bought while her mother was still pregnant. It was meant to be a Christmas gift." The stranger turned to go. Desperation forced the words from her lips. But, but who? Who bought it?" Pausing in the door, he replied, "Your husband, ma'am." And then he was gone. It was all in the letter. Forgetting the puppy entirely at the sight of the familiar handwriting, Stella walked like a sleepwalker to her chair by the window. She forced her tear-filled eyes to read her husband's words. He had written the letter 3 weeks before his death and had left with the kennel owners to be delivered along with the puppy as his last Christmas gift to her. It was full of love and encouragement and admonishments to be strong. He vowed that he was waiting for the day when she would join him, and he had sent her this young animal to keep her company until then. Remembering the little creature for the first time, she was surprised to find him quietly looking up at her, his small panting mouth resembling a comic smile. Stella put the pages aside and reached for the bundle of golden fur. She thought that he would be heavier, but he was only the size and weight of a sofa pillow, and so soft and warm she cradled him in her arms, and he licked her jawbone, then cuddled into the hollow of her neck. The tears began anew at this exchange of affection, and the boy endured her crying without moving. Finally, Stella lowered him to her lap, where she regarded him solemnly. She wiped vaguely at her wet cheeks, then somehow mustered a smile. "Well, little guy, I guess it's you and me." His pink tongue panted in agreement. Stella's smile strengthened, and her gaze shifted sideways to the window. Dusk had fallen. Through fluffy flakes that were now drifting down, she saw the cheery Christmas lights edging the roof lines of her neighbors' homes. The strains of joy to the world floated in from the kitchen. Suddenly, Stella felt the most amazing sensation of peace and benediction wash over her. It was like being enfolded in a loving embrace. Her heart beat painfully. But in but it was with joy and wonder, not grief or loneliness. She need never feel alone again. Returning her attention to the dog, she spoke to him. You know, fella, I have a box in the basement that I think you'd like. There's a tree in it and some decorations and lights that will impress you like crazy. And I think I can find that old stable down there too. Why'd you say we go hunt it up? The puppy barked happily in agreement, as if he understood every word. Stella got up, placed the puppy on the floor, and together they went down to the basement ready to make a Christmas together. By Kathy Miller, ending on page 6. Thank you.